Namaste, Nyandev.
Namaste.
So I think it's very commonplace in the world. It's something I'll admit I sort of experience myself, and I see it in so many other people as well. That we all our actions are motivated by the desire to avoid negativity, to avoid pain or anything we want to avoid. Like we go to work to avoid, the problems associated, with being in the red, with the bank and going bankrupt and losing a house and not being able to feed our family and all these things. But how would you shift to a position of being motivated more, by love and moving towards the positive and and expanding yourself into a kind of communal sort of identity?
Well, that's a very beautiful question, I guess, or a beautiful inquiry for all of us in some form, because we all go through this cycle of desires. As Lord Krishna says, when Arjuna did ask him, why, even though we know what is right to do, or what are the virtues, or what is the divine, our divine sort of action or divine response in situations, but we still do what we feel that's going to bring us fruit or the result in various situations in our life. Why do we do so many non-virtuous acts? And he said, all that is actually driven. Krishna answers there that all these actions are rooted, or the seed actually begins into our three gunas, the three primary qualities or the inherited nature we have, and that also have an influence or the filter through with our samskaras, which are sort of, think of your epigenetic memories or all the behavior patterns that you have born with or in your DNA, also the ones we learn or inherited from our family, then our culture, our society. So when we are driven into the fruit, into the result, or into the end goal, it brings the two sort of uncertainty or the duality, the conflict in us. So the one, if I get it or if I don't get it. So it becomes in a both way. If you look at the end result, if I get it or if I don't get it, because if you get it, it brings a sense of ego, it brings sense of that pride, which gradually can also lead you into fueling or feeding into the ego, which causes many behavioral or our what we call the moral and ethical issues in our choices. And then the second choice where we have I don't get it, so that brings fear, that brings uncertainty. Sometimes also if you get it, if you got a house, you got a job, you got power, you got money, either you have it or not have it, there is a definite element of fear or uncertainty, because what we get always going to go away. There is always chance that you lose. Even your own body that you possess, you think this is me. When we talk around, you're like always wandering around, Nyandev, this is Nyandev, or this is Surya. So we associate ourselves, or this is what people sort of recognize us with. Even that is not permanent. So we do not. So that the uncertainty of losing something or getting it with possessing the ego, the negative side, or not being able to get it. So they both create a chain reactions of fear and uncertainty that causes anxiousness, that causes worries or fear, and it gradually leads us into many forms of what chitvartis, the whirlpools of mind, which gradually leads us into sense of dullness or the negative state of mind. Sort of almost in a modern psychology, you can say that state of what depression, where we are completely confused. We don't know what to do and what not to do, or how to respond, how to act, how to do things. So in both ways, either you get it or not get it, there is an element of negative trait or the negative behavior pattern. And that is where, the yogic idea or the spiritual idea begins with our virtuous living. So when you start to bring those virtues of ahimsa, non-violence, which you can see that whatever I do, I don't cause any harm to myself. Now, harm can be physical, so you causing physical torture, physical pain or injuries to your body. Harm can also be mental, your mental attitude, your emotional attitude, and how you are looking after yourself. Harm can be at a spiritual level, not being able to grow spiritually or prosper spiritually. So those non-virtuous sort of living, when you start to transform them with the positive virtues, and then you also transcend them. You transcend them and you see the divine perspective or divine being in you and all your actions. And the key thing really is sort of really being more and more in tuned or attuned with your own self, your own potential, and then all the actions, all the duties that you need to perform, seeing a divine beauty or a divine blessing in it. So sort of think, somebody is cleaning the floor and someone is ruling the country. If we can see that they both are equally important in their own way, then this sense of fear motivation, the negative motivation that we have, that I have to do something to prove, where actually in your spiritual sense there is nothing to prove. There is only thing we need to live up to is doing things, performing all our duties or actions to attain that true potential we have. And each and every human being, as Swamiji says, we are born with the birthright of health and happiness. Now that health and happiness, yes, can have many dimensions. You do want a dry roof on your head, you want to be comfortable, in the climate we live, you want to have some sort of heating, some sort of warmth going on, you want to have electricity to use all your appliances, you want food on your plate, even for yourself, your family, you want to have some sort of mode that you can get from place to place. So even your material needs, that you're fulfilling them, you're desiring for them, you also must remember that they are actually not negative. Your desires and what you fulfill, what you seek for, they become actually negative or positive, good or bad, the way you are fulfilling them, the way you are feeding them. You can be really happy and prosperous and love and live your life in a little caravan, a little tiny shed where all you got is a bed to sleep and a little gas cooker to cook your meal and a toilet and shower. Or maybe the rishis used to just live in a cave and finding a river for the bath and going walking around in the forest. So when you start to actually appreciate and in tune and enjoy with what you have, and appreciating that what you have is your choice, you're not comparing your life, your choices with so many other people out there. So if your choice is to, yes, I would like to live a simple life, just do how much I need to do to fulfill my basic needs, and rest of my time I want to spend that time in my sadhana. Your sadhana can be hatha yoga, pranayama, studying books, your meditation, maybe service, looking after other people. So when you made that choice, you must continuously remind yourself that you don't ever compare yourself for people who are seeking or progressing on a material path, because that's where this negative fear or the negative trait of motivation that drives us out to perform, to be successful in compare or in competition with other people. And I guess to me, the last sort of practice here I can recommend here is, as when we're looking at our life, we live in either the object reference. This is how we compare ourselves. Like we think, oh, this is me, Surya, and who am I, or what do I have in this society? So when you look at yourself in an outward perspective, then you're comparing yourself with the clothes you're wearing, even maybe the look of your face, look of your eyes or your body, or the car you have, how much money you have in your bank account, big house, big job, big power. But when you are sort of seeing yourself or living into the object reference, well, these objects, this material, this outer look is endless. It does not actually ever have a sense of fulfillment. Doesn't matter how much you have, you want more. And then the opposite of this, we have the self reference, where you start to look at yourself from your own perspective, from the perspective of your evolution, your physical health, your mental well-being, and that inner calmness. So when you're comparing or looking at yourself from your own perspective, then whatever you have done today, you see, how can I perform or do it a little better tomorrow? So in that way, then, more you grow, more you get connected to your own self, and you're not connecting with the outer or the material self. So living, your life more in tune or in harmony with yourself, and choices you make, be happy with the outcome or the end result. Don't compare it, don't race that against other people. It's like, I met with some amazing people last time when I was in India, and one of this young boy, I think maybe 22, 23 old, and very well educated guy, and he just had this little tea stall on one of the street, and a couple of samosas and biscuits. That's all he sells. And I really had a good chat with him, and I was talking to him like, oh, are you happy with what you're doing? And the pride or the inner joy he had, like, yes, I am, because this is my choice. I don't want to run an industry. I never wanted to go and be educated in all these modern sort of things. He said, this is my choice, and because I made it, I'm happy with all the fruits and all the sort of outcomes of my choice. So the contentment you get. So if you choose that I want to go into the service form, I just want to look after people, well, financially your life might be not as comfortable, or not, you might not have as much as money as someone else running many industries. So actually having that sense of contentment and that non-judgmental, that non-comparative sort of heart or the attitude will naturally change or transform this fear motivation into the love, or into what we call the divine motivation, the Iswar Prasadanam. That's something we were having a discussion on the last talk.